Hey everybody, how's it going? I read something this morning that made me very angry. Perhaps I shouldn't be as angry as I am. Perhaps I'm being irrational and jumping to conclusions, but please do let me know. But this is just the visceral gut feeling that I had when I read this article. Here it says the argument to tax work from home benefits. It says choosing to earn a living from home once the pandemic ends is a privilege that you should pay for, according to strategists from Deutsche Bank's AG research arm. Working from home will be part of the new normal well after the pandemic has passed. The strategist led by Luke Templeman wrote in a note, "We argue that remote workers should pay a tax for the privilege." The team proposed a 5% levy for those who work from home on a regular basis, and not because of a government lockdown mandate. Such a measure could raise $48 billion a year in the United States, and about 16 billion euros, $18.8 billion in Germany, they say, to fund subsidies for low-income earners and essential workers who are unable to work remotely. Deutsche Bank Research undertook a survey to examine the major global shift towards remote work that occurred as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, which may endure as professionals discover financial, personal, and professional benefits of the change. According to the results, more than half of those working remotely want to continue doing so for between 2 and 3 days a week, even after the health crisis ends. A survey of 800 people was conducted in September. Working in the comfort of one's own home saves money on travel, lunch, and socializing, according to Deutsche Bank Research, and offers greater job security and flexibility, the strategist said. Yet, people who are working remotely are also contributing less to the infrastructure of the economy, potentially extending the slump in national growth. That's a big problem for the economy, as it's taken decades and centuries to build up the wider business's economic infrastructure that supports face-to-face working, Templeman said. The proposed levy would be paid by the employer if they don't provide their employee with a desk, whereas if the worker decides to stay home based on their own needs, they would be taxed for each day they work remotely, according to Deutsche Bank Research. In the U.S., the strategists calculate such a tax could pay for a $1,500 grant to the 29 million workers making under $30,000 a year and unable to work from home. It does make sense to support the mass of people who have been suddenly displaced by forces outside their control, Templeman said. Those who are lucky enough to be in a position to disconnect themselves from the face-to-face economy owe it to them. Here is why when I read this, my hand was like just literally just shaking and vibrating with rage. So let's just talk about the United States and the taxes that you usually pay here. You know, that once the average everyday worker has their federal taxes, state or city taxes, their Social Security, Medicare, and everything else taken out, that's somewhere around 30 to 40% of their pay. So right off the top, 30 to 40% of their pay is already just going straight to the government. Do keep in mind that Social Security is mostly a Ponzi scheme that most of us young people realize when we turn 60 or 80 is probably not going to be there for us. And Medicare is health care for the elderly, not health care for all, meaning that those two sections of taxes are already taxes that are going towards services that we either will not receive for the next 30 to 40 years or will likely never receive once it goes bankrupt. When you buy something, depending on which state you live in, you may have a sales tax. 4 to 8% or so every time you purchase something is going to go to your sales tax. If you own a home, depending on the type of home you own and depending on the state that you live in, you may be paying $2,600 to $20,000 a year to have a home. After you pay the $100,000 to $1 million to buy it, you're going to now pay somewhere between $2,000 and $20,000 a year in rent and taxes to your local government. But that is not enough. That means that you're not contributing to your local economy. You're not contributing. That's the way that it's phrased in this article. It says those who are lucky enough to be in a position owe it to them. Tell me more. Just tell me more. So here's the way this works. When you get paid, you're going to be taxed somewhere between 30 to 40%. In order to maintain the home that you supposedly own, you're going to pay $10,000 a year. And if you choose, after paying $500,000 for that home, after paying $10,000 a year in tax, after giving 30 to 40% of your salary to the government to work out of that home, you should be taxed for the privilege of using the home that you both paid and own and rent from the government to be able to work in. This is and there's another line in this that just absolutely drove me nuts. That is a big problem for the economy, as it has taken decades and centuries to build up the wider business and economic infrastructure that supports face-to-face working. See, that's weasel words. What that says is that's a big problem for an economy that has been extracting and leeching off of people in the form of property taxes on overvalued commercial real estate, where a box the size of this room costs $10,000 a month. We spent, we put, a good $10,000 back in the day into building this room, and we want to be able to collect $10,000 a month from now until eternity, and the city wants to be able to tax us from now until eternity on this little box that you pay an incredibly inflated amount of rent on. Oh, what's that? You found out that you could do your job without getting ripped off by the New York commercial real estate brokers? You found out a way that you could do your job without having to sit in a 40-minute to 2-hour commute every day on either a broken train or some bumper-to-bumper traffic on the BQ, and you figured out that you could do your job in the box that you pay $1,500 a month for rather than a box that you're going to pay $10,000 a month for? Oh, well, see, that's a privilege. The phrasing of this is what really gets to me more than anything else, because the phrasing of this article, it pretends that the problem is with you not giving enough rather than them for spending too much. Because you have to think about it. Again, the company is going to pay you. You're going to have 40% taken away in taxes. When you buy a home, you're going to pay for the home, and then you're going to pay yearly in taxes. When you go to the store, you're going to pay in taxes. And if that corporation actually did what their parents taught them and saved away money for a rainy day, well, they did the wrong thing, because whatever is left over after paying the employees, they're going to take 20 to 35% of that in corporate taxes. So if you actually do the right thing and save for a rainy day rather than the wrong thing and pay yourself a corporate a bonus package and then borrow money with a low interest rate and have that for a rainy day, then you're going to get taxed on it. After all that, you owe it. You owe it to give more than 40% of your income in taxes. And again, we're not even talking about just taxing the rich here. This is about a tax on anybody who works from home. So if you're a customer service person and I don't know, you're making like $30,000 or $40,000 a year working from home in an expensive area, you're still going to have this tax added onto you. This isn't even some sort of tax where they're trying to frame it as we're just going to tax the ultra rich people, so it's not going to affect any of you, even if that were true. This is going to be what affects everybody, but particularly the framing. You owe it. You owe it, because 40 to 50% of the money that you make is not enough. We need more. And this is what I talked about in my video a few days ago about New Jersey. This is what I talked about when I said that these governments that have $200 billion in unfunded liabilities, they are going to find new ways to screw normal, average, everyday working people and businesses because they need to, because they have nowhere else to turn. They already spent the money. They already had a Ponzi scheme run on them, and they've already based this Ponzi scheme. They've lost all this money with high taxes on their citizenry. So they have to find these new sneaky ways to stick the tip in. And I understand how it is. Trust me, I get it. In New York City, I understand why they're doing this. This is why the New York City is happy that commercial real estate is the ripoff that it is. Because if you take a look at our budget and our revenues, a good portion of that is going to come from real estate taxes here. Real estate taxes make up an ever-increasing portion of taxes that from the state. It's way more than personal income tax and sales and use taxes and everything else. So property taxes are important. New York spending is based on the fact that commercial real estate is a complete and utter ripoff. If commercial real estate in the city were not the ripoff it was, then these numbers would be lower. If these numbers were lower, then the city would have to either spend less or find some other way to come up with the money, or spend less. But they can't do that. They can never spend less. So what they have to do is they have to pretend that the people here are not already paying enough in taxes. So if you pay taxes on your home in excess of $15,000 a year, if you pay taxes on your corporation of 20 to 30% a year, if you pay taxes on your income of 30 to 40% a year, and if you pay taxes every time you go to the store, you're not contributing enough. Even if you are no longer really making use of more of the infrastructure because you're not going outside as much, you're not putting as much wear on the infrastructure because you work from home, you owe more. And like the phrasing of this is what bothers me the most. I'm not saying that people don't need help. I'm not saying that people who are going out there and doing essential work shouldn't be in some way supported. What I'm saying is, what the fuck have you been doing with the 40 to 50% of our incomes that you have been taking for the past 20 to 40 to 70 years? What are you doing with the $10,000 to $20,000 per year that middle-class families in New York City are paying in property taxes on very modest 1,200 square foot homes? What the fuck have you been doing with all the corporate taxes, with all the income taxes, sales taxes? You can't help people out of the 40 to 50% that we already pay. You gotta, and the phrasing here is really what bothers me the most, because the phrasing is suggesting that it's not that the city has spent too much. It's not that there's been rampant corruption. It's not that we've run our government like a Ponzi scheme. It's that you, the worker that is working from home, are privileged, and as a result of your privilege, you should pay, as a result of the fact that you are being spoiled and deciding that I want to work and do things from my home, that's why we can't have nice things. It had nothing to do with the government that squandered and fucked up all the money. To the people at Deutsche Bank that are suggesting that if someone decides that if they want to just, you know what, I'm just going to step out of the economy of paying commercial real estate bullshit garbage rates that force us to drive up the prices we charge customers and screw over the way we do business, I'm going to step out of that whole corrupt system that they should be taxed more because they are privileged. Fuck you. That's it for today, and as always, I hope you learned something. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. And again, this is honestly one of the reasons that I think moving right now, if you're looking at moving, may not be the best thing to do. Wait. Because it's going to be over the next year or so that they start finding ways to stick the tip in. And it would suck if you relocated everything to a new area and then found out that that area that you moved to starts sticking the tip in after you have relocated and changed everything and changed your lifestyle to move to this new place. I'm really going to be on the lookout over the next year or so for what areas of the United States use this type of rhetoric, what areas of the U.S. Decide that they are going to try and frame it like people who are working from home or in some way leeches on the economy that need to pay more in taxes because and any of this. Like the moment I see this type of rhetoric coming from a state, I'm crossing that out of the list of states that I would move my business to. And I want to be perfectly clear here. I don't have skin in the game regarding working from home because my business is not one that I can do in a work from home fashion with the volume that we get and the fact that sometimes we have maybe 2 or 3 different technicians work on a device and that people expect their items back very quickly. I cannot have an item go back and forth, FedEx ground from you to you to you. I cannot, it's just, it would be a ridiculous mess. It would add a lot of expense to our business and it would reduce the efficiency by leaps and bounds. It would be awful for my particular type of business. However, the reason that I feel strongly about this is because this shows that a municipality or a local city or state government has the propensity to stick the tip in. Once they claim that individuals who paid $500,000 for their home, who are paying $15,000 to $20,000 a year in property tax to rent that home, are privileged if they use that home that they're spending all that money on while paying 40% of their salary in taxes for the work that they do, that shows me when they use that rhetoric that they have the propensity to stick the tip in and to try and gut their citizenry for every last nickel and dime that they can, which means they're probably going to find new and creative ways to do it, which means that I would never in a million years move my business to that area. And I think you're going to see more of this slow boiling of the frog over the next year or so, where they just kind of keep just programming people to think that the people that work from home are privileged, the people that work from home are the reason that you can't have nice things, the people that work from home are the reason that our economy is going in the shitter. They should be paying their fair share. Like it's one thing to use that rhetoric towards billionaires. It's another to then try and turn around and use that rhetoric against people that make $40,000 to $50,000 a year that already pay 40% of their salary in taxes. And I'm really curious to see if this takes hold in the wider society or if people look and go, nah, that's bullshit. Nah. See, like when you're using that on Jeff Bezos, maybe fine, I get it, but no, you're not. You're not using. No. I really hope that is what occurs. I really do hope that there is some whole-scale rejection of this. And I think that it's going to be important over the next year, rather than move immediately, really focus in on what states, cities, and municipalities start using this type of rhetoric so that you can kind of get a gauge of who's going to start doing this. before you move, because I know for sure that, like, again, I'm in New York City for a reason. I have a great staff of talented people here. Recreating that somewhere else is realistically going to take me several years, and that would be several years whereby we would be doing you break, I fix standard of work, which would be absolutely unacceptable to us as a company, and that there's a good client base here. But if I were to move at some point in time, I need to make sure that I'm not leaving one sinking ship for another. And once you see that rhetoric come out, you know as a business owner that the rest is coming. That's it. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I've kind of rambled on at this point, so I will end it by petting the kitty. Kitty? Kitty. Was a good boy, Mr. Clinton. Yeah, you stick your claws into that recliner that I paid for. You stick your claws into the... Yep. Kitty.